Welcome to the next lecture of Osha online training. Today our topic is confined spaces. We will discuss confined spaces training and entry in it. So today lectures outlines are: first we will see what is a confined space, examples of confined space, hazards associated with confined spaces, permit required confined space entry option and non-permit required confined space entry option. And lastly we will see what are some of the permit required confined space entry procedures. If a person is working in permit required confined spaces, in that case what are some of the procedures to follow in order to fulfill the requirement of OSHA. So what is a confined space? It is an area that has restricted or limited means of entry or exit. It is not for everyone to enter or come out from it. It is too much difficult to enter or come out from it. It is not for continuous human occupancy. It's not that a human can live inside it. It is just for operation purpose that a human enter in it and perform operations and then come out. But all of this will be done with a proper procedure in OSHA. It is large enough so that a worker can enter in it bodily and perform operations in it. It is not that much thin in the size that a worker cannot enter in it. It is large in size so that a worker can enter. It means that he can carry all his equipments in order to perform operations inside it. Examples include tanks, manholes on the roads, boilers, furnaces, maybe in different kind of industries, sewers. These are all of the examples of confined spaces. They may be in normal public areas and in some industries as well. Pipes, this may be on the public side and also in different kind of industries. Tunnels, bins and pits. These are all of the examples of confined spaces. Now, let's see in the picture that this is basically a confined space and this is a person. So this is a dangerous area for a worker to enter without permit. A worker, if he want to enter it, if a worker want to enter in the confined space, he have to first take the permit from the safety officer and then the work will initiate. We will see permit in the next lectures in detail. How safety officer issue the permit and how he then cancel it. So all of these things. This is also a confined space, a worker is entering inside it. So these are the examples of confined space. Some of the hazards associated with confined spaces are: first, there may be oxygen deficiency if a worker is coming inside the confined space. If suppose the oxygen level is less than 19.5 or greater than 23.5, less than 19.5 and greater than 23.5 is dangerous for health. In the case of 19.5, a person may not be able to breathe. There are some confined spaces where the level of the concentration of the oxygen is really less. So in that case, a person will not or a worker will not be able to breathe. So in that case, different kind of devices are used in order to measure the oxygen concentration in those confined spaces, and if it is suitable to enter, then a worker is allowed to enter in the confined spaces. Else, some breathing devices would be provided to the worker in order to work inside the confined space. There may be combustible metals: hydrogen, methane, propane, acetylene, gasoline fumes. So these are the combustible elements that may burn. These material may be there in the confined spaces, and and after the chemical reaction, a fire may occur because these are the combustible metals and they may be present in the confined spaces. So it may be dangerous for the worker. Toxic materials may be there, for example, hydrogen sulfide, welding fumes, carbon monoxide, and different kind of corrosives. So they may be inhaled by the worker. It may be dangerous for the worker working in the confined space. So these are the hazards linked with confined spaces. So a safety officer have to make sure that he have to avoid the worker to come in contact with these material, and he have to follow certain procedures in order to make the confined space dangerous free. There may be mechanical hazards such as hydrogen, methane, propane, acetylene, and gasoline fumes, and also electrical hazards may be there. There may be electricity inside the confined space. So a safety officer have to take initiatives in order to protect the worker working in the confined space, and for this he have to issue a permit which will be fulfilled before starting the work inside the confined space. Now there are two type of confined spaces. One is permit required and next one is non-permit required. So permit required is the one which is hazardous, and non-permit required is the one which is non-hazardous. So the permit required confined space might have dangerous situation inside it. It may have toxic materials, different kind of elements which would not be good for the health of a worker. So in that case, in order to protect the worker, there should be a permit before a worker entered the confined space. So a safety officer will first issue the permit, and he have to make sure that the area in the confined space is dangerous free and it's not hazardous. The next one is non-permit required. So a non-permit required confined space do not require a permit. It's really in rare situations. Mostly confined spaces required permit. Now, what is the procedure for entering permit required confined spaces? There are some rules. A safety officer, before starting the confined space work through the workers, a safety officer must have to give toolbox talk or safety induction. A safety officer have to instruct the workers how to work inside, what to follow, what rules to follow, and how to work inside it. Fulfill the permit requirement. All of the permit details should be fulfilled, which is written in the permit document. The atmosphere should be tested before the work. There are certain devices through which the atmosphere and the oxygen level is tested inside the confined spaces through competent persons, and when it's checked, after it, a person is allowed to enter and work in the confined space. And the area should be ventilated. There should be some air so that a worker can enter and he can breathe inside the area. So ventilation should be provided, or air should be provided in the confined space. And lastly, the worker should enter the space. So this was about confined spaces. Hope it helps you a lot. Take care and see you in the next lecture.